When it comes to talking about the manosphere, is the manosphere good or bad? And that's what I want to talk about for today. Now, when discussing the manosphere, there are three categories that we need to get into. Category one, we got the incel. Category two, the online influencer. And category three, the current modern day culture with the whole dating scene, and that is the MGTOW and the female loneliness epidemic. Not the male loneliness epidemic, the female loneliness epidemic. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Category one, the incel. Now, most young boys in the time of their life will have an incel phase. I wouldn't say I really had an incel phase. I just wasn't really into talking to, females or anything. Even at my current age, I don't really talk to females all that much. I'm not that much of a social person. However, when it comes to the influence of the manosphere, keep in mind that people like, Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, and other videos constantly bashing women who deserve it. I didn't say they didn't deserve it. They do deserve it for using some of these young boys and men for their own gain. I've never had that happen to me because I never really dated anyone. However, the manosphere really preys on these young boys and men who either have been screwed by other girls or women or have an intense hatred for them, or the boys that want to date a female that don't have enough confidence. Because I'm going to be honest with you, today is a different world than 1950 or 1960. And I can tell you this, most young men are not interested in dating anymore. And I can keep that 100% with you. I mean, look at these statistics. You can see online with the percentage of, young men being single being 63%. And as a generation kid myself, most men my age, we don't really date in a traditional sense. Most of us prefer to, be alone or just hang out with our friends or loved ones. And that's just the truth. Now, when it comes to the incel, these are the type of boys and men that get too caught up in the manosphere. They keep on the manosphere, doesn't care about your feelings. They make a profit off hurt boys and hurt men. And there are plenty of incels and soon to be incels that continue to watch these people. And that's just the truth of it. I've seen it. Trust me, being an incel does not mean that you have to go out of your way to hurt other people, or hurt other women or girls just because you don't get laid. You know what I mean? But besides that, let's go on to the online influencer. Sorry if I said it with myself. Now, when it comes to talking about this, the women or the female loneliness epidemic that I'll talk about right now, a lot of people bring up the male loneliness epidemic, which in reality, The females, most of them are starting to realize that there are more options than just dating. You can make money online, start your own business. And I've noticed one thing. Most of these women, all these female influencers online that go out of their way to talk about why aren't no men approaching us or why are men avoiding this? Most of these women look like they're over the age 30, look like they have plastic surgery, or most of them look like that they go out of their way to purposely hurt these young boys and men. Those are the type of women that you should avoid in real life. That's the instant red flag. And sadly, there's a lot of them out there. Now, with number two, the online influencer, figureheads such as Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, other alt-right, and even some alt-left. Except on the alt-left, it's a bit different when it comes to talking about, masculinity. But I want to talk about how true masculinity is really just a myth. Like there really is no Giga Chad in real life. I mean, come on. But besides that, the online influencer, I know a lot of children who grew up with Top G, aka the infamous Andrew Tate. Now I was too old. I was in my, man, I'm still in my young, 20s. I was too old to be watching Andrew Tate. He influences, a younger generation of boys. That being Gen Alpha, maybe some younger generation Z. But besides that, Fresh and Fit, you got them too. Sneeko, when he first started out, I know he probably doesn't do that anymore. But the online influencer influenced a generation of young boys and men to really not pursue, females. That's a false advertisement. The goal was for these young boys and men to give these influencers attention, sign up for their programs, and make them more richer. Like I said, the real goal of the Manosphere was not to really chase after females trying to get laid and all that. It was a get rich quickly scheme from hurt boys and hurt men, or even the curious ones. But besides that, we got our final category. Now, the MGTOW category and the female loneliness. We're going to talk about that again. Or better yet, I got a better name for it. The female coping epidemic and the MGTOW epidemic. Is there any problem with any of these? Not really. I could care less who dates who. I can care less who's single. I could care less who's hurt about being dumped. I'm sorry if that's a you problem, but when talking about category three, I've noticed a little chain reaction. How some of these women that look they're over 30, already have kids, are single, been dumped by 50 men. These type of women prey after young men as the younger women go after older men. I've noticed that. As for how these young boys and men respond, or excuse me, these men, they know how to play the game. Some of them don't. And some of these women will use these men, some of these men will use these women. Like I said, the goal is for the man to spend as much money on the female because at a young age, some girls, or excuse me, most young girls are taught to exploit a man's money, either for, child support or on dates. Now, when it comes to MGTOW, this is really for the Generation Z men and the Generation Alpha young boys and men that are coming in age. We see right through this. Like we see how some of these women use these men for money and cash, and that's where MGTOW started. And you notice how the majority of guys that are my age, younger, maybe a few years older, we can see right through the game, which is why most of us choose to stay out of the fire, or some of them experiment. They don't get too deep in it. But the MGTOW movement is seen as a bad thing. But to be honest, I don't really see anything wrong with it besides the female coping people. Now, with the female coping epidemic, the only reason why the MGTOW people get so much hate is because of the female coping epidemic. And most of these females that are being exposed, most of them are these Twitch streamers, these influencers, the ones that like putting the camera in front of their face just to complain. And in real life, you notice that most of Generation Z is not really concerned with that old lifestyle of getting married, have children, get a house, rinse and repeat. That's kind of an old tradition. You're not going to really see much of that nowadays. Like I said, there's so many other ways for men and women, young boys and girls, for them to get rich and quick. Now, that depends how you do it. There's so many opportunities out there. But besides that, to add on to that, it's also difficult to get rich and quick, unless you somehow hacked your way into the matrix and broke the system, like some of these online influencers. But that will close out my MGTOW discussion, my Manosphere discussion for today. And keep in mind, these are the three categories: the incel, the online influencer, and the MGTOW and the female loneliness epidemic. Now, before I close out this video, I will upload more videos about this. It kind of turns into its own series, and I'll kind of be studying other media, uploading videos about that. But besides that, look at this as a prologue to my series about the manosphere. Anyway, take care.